Welcome, 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 my lovely brothers and sisters. Today I'm going to finish off the long story about marriage, and I'm going through the last sections of paper 84, and the last sections are titled Woman Under the Developing Moors, the Partnership of Man and Woman, the Ideals of Family Life, Dangers of self gratification. So let us see what the Orange book is telling us about all these topics. I leave this page and I go to screen share so that everyone can read along with me. All right, woman under the developing Moors. In self-perpetuation, woman is man's equal, but in the partnership of self-maintenance, she labors at a decided disadvantage. And this handicap of enforced maternity can only be compensated by the enlightened Moors of advancing civilization and by man's increasing sense of acquired fairness. As society evolved, the sex standards rose higher among women because they suffered more from the consequences of the transgression of the sex mores. Men's sex standards are only tardily improving as a result of the sheer sense of that fairness which civilization demands. Nature knows nothing of fairness, makes a woman alone suffer the pangs of childbirth. The modern idea of sex equality is beautiful and worthy of an expanding civilization, but is not found in nature. When might is right, man lords it over woman. When more justice, peace, and fairness prevail, she gradually emerges from slavery and obscurity. Woman's social position has generally varied inversely with the degree of militarism in any nation or age, but man did not consciously nor intentionally seize woman's rights, and then gradually and grudgingly give them back to her. All this was an unconscious and unplanned episode of social evolution. When the time really came for woman to enjoy added rights, she got them, and all quite regardless of man's conscious attitude. Slowly but surely, the Moors change so as to provide for those social adjustments which are part of the persistent evolution of civilization. The advancing Moors slowly provided increasingly better treatment for females. Those tribes which persisted in cruelty to them did not survive. The Adamites and Nodites accorded women increased recognition, and those groups which were influenced by the migrating Andites have tended to be influenced by the Edenic teachings regarding woman's place in society. The early Chinese and the Greeks treated women better than did most surrounding peoples. But the Hebrews were exceedingly distrustful of them. In the Occident, a woman has had a difficult climb under the Pauline doctrines, which became attached to Christianity. Although Christianity did advance the Moors by imposing more stringent sex obligations upon men, women's state is little short of hopeless under the peculiar degradation which attaches to her in Mohammedanism, and she fares even worse under the teachings of several other Oriental religions. Science, not religion, really emancipated a woman. It was the modern factory which largely set her free from the confines of the home. Man's physical abilities became no longer a vital essential in the new maintenance mechanism. Science so changed the conditions of living that manpower was no longer so superior to woman power. Oh, Um, these changes have tended toward a woman's liberation from domestic slavery and have brought about such a modification of her status that she now enjoys a degree of personal liberty and sex determination that practically equals men's. Once a woman's value consisted in her food producing ability, but invention and wealth have enabled her to create a new world in which to function, spheres of grace and charm. Thus has industry won its unconscious and unintended fight for women's social and economic emancipation, and again has evolution succeeded in doing what even revelation failed to accomplish. The reaction of enlightened peoples from the inequitable mores governing a women's place in society has indeed been pendulum like in its extremeness. Among industrialized races, she has received almost all rights and enjoys exemption from many obligations, such as military service. Every easement of the struggle for existence has redounded to the liberation of woman, and she has directly benefited from every advance toward monogamy. The weaker always makes disproportionate gains in every adjustment of the mores in the progressive evolution of society. In the ideals of pair marriage, a woman has finally won recognition, dignity, independence, equality, and education, but will she prove worthy of all this new and unprecedented accomplishment? Will modern woman respond to this great achievement of social liberation with idleness, indifference, barrenness, and infidelity? Today, in the 20th and 21st century, woman is undergoing the crucial test of her long world existence. Woman is man's equal partner in race reproduction, hence just as important in the unfolding of racial evolution. Therefore, has evolution increasingly worked toward the realization of woman's rights, but woman's rights are by no means men's rights. Woman cannot thrive on men's rights any more than men can prosper on woman's rights. Each sex has its own distinctive sphere of existence together with its own rights within that sphere. If woman aspires literally to enjoy all of man's rights, then sooner or later pitiless and emotionless competition will certainly replace that chivalry and special consideration which many women now enjoy and which they have so recently won from men. Civilization never can obliterate behavior gulf between the sexes. From age to age, the mores change, but instinct never. Innate maternal affection will never permit emancipation woman to become man's serious rival in industry. Forever, each sex will remain supreme in its own domain, domains determined by biologic differentiation and by mental dissimilarity. Each sex will always have its own special sphere, albeit they will ever and anon overlap. Only socially will men and women compete on equal terms. The partnership of man and woman. The reproductive urge unfailingly brings men and women together for self-perpetuation, but alone does not ensure their remaining together in mutual cooperation. The founding of a home. Every successful human institution embraces antagonisms of personal interest which have been adjusted to practical working harmony, and homemaking is no exception. Marriage, the basis of home building, is the highest manifestation of that antagonistic cooperation which so often characterizes the contexts of nature and society. The conflict is inevitable, mating is inherent, it is natural, but marriage is not biologic, it is sociologic. Passion ensures that man and woman will come together, but the weaker parental instinct and the social mores hold them together. Male and female are practically regarded two distinct varieties of the same species living in close and intimate association. Their viewpoints and entire life reactions are essentially different. They are wholly incapable of full and real comprehension of each other. Complete understanding between the sexes is not attainable. Women seem to have more intuition than men, but they also appear to be somewhat less logical. Woman, however, has always been the moral standard bearer and the spiritual leader of mankind. The hand that rocks the cradle still fraternizes with destiny. The differences of nature, reaction, viewpoint, and thinking between men and women, far from occasioning concern, should be regarded as highly beneficial to mankind both individually and collectively. Many orders of universe creatures are created in dual phases of personality manifestation. Among mortals, material sons and midsoniters. This difference is described as male and female. Among seraphim, cherubim, and Morontia companions, it has been denominated positive or aggressive, and negative or retiring. Such dual associations greatly multiply versatility and overcome inherent limitations, even as do certain triune associations in the Paradise Havona system. Men and women need each other in their moral and spiritual as well as in their mortal careers. The differences in viewpoint between male and female persist even beyond the first life and throughout the local and super-universe ascensions. And even in Havona, the pilgrims who were once men and women will still be aiding each other in the paradise ascent, never even in the Even in the corpse of the finality, will the creature metamorphose so far as to obliterate the personality trends that humans call male and female. If we lose the physical form, we in actuality are not really be seen as male and female. You can say as plus and minus. Always will these two basic variations of humankind continue to intrigue, stimulate, encourage, and assist each other. Always will they be mutually dependent on cooperation in the solution of perplexing universe problems and in the overcoming of manifold cosmic difficulties. While the sexes never can hope fully to understand each other, they are effectively complementary, and though cooperating is often more or less personally antagonistic, it is capable of maintaining and reproducing society. Marriage is an institution designed to compose sex differences, meanwhile affecting the continuation of civilization and ensuring the reproduction of the race. Marriage is the mother of all human institutions, for it leads directly to home founding and home maintenance, which is the structural basis of society. The family is vitally linked to the mechanism of self-maintenance. It is the sole hope of race perpetuation under the mores of civilization, while at the same time it most effectively provides certain highly satisfactory forms of self-gratification. The family is man's greatest purely human achievement, combining as it does the evolution of the biologic relations of male and female with the social relations of husband and wife. 7. The ideals of family life. Sex mating is instinctive, children are the natural result, and the family thus automatically comes into existence. As are the families of the race or nation, so is its society. If the families are good, the society is likewise good. The great cultural stability of the Jewish and of the Chinese peoples lies in the strength of their family groups. Woman's instinct to love and care for children conspired to make her the interested party in promoting marriage and primitive family life. Man was only forced into home building by the pressure of the later mores and social conventions. He was slow to take an interest in the establishment of marriage and home because the sex act imposes no biologic consequences upon him. Sex association is natural, but marriage is social and has always been regulated by the mores. The mores, religious, moral, and ethical, together with property, pride, and chivalry, stabilize the institutions of marriage and family. Whenever the mores fluctuate, there is fluctuation in the stability of the home marriage institution. Marriage is now passing out of the property stage into the personal era. Formerly, man protected a woman because she was his chattel, and she obeyed for the same reason, regardless of its merits. This system did provide stability. Now woman is no longer regarded as property, and new mores are emerging, designed to stabilize the marriage home institution. 1. The new role of religion, the teaching that parental experience is essential, the idea of procreating cosmic citizens, the enlarged understanding of the privilege of procreation, giving sons to the Father. To the new role of science, procreation is becoming more and more voluntary, subject to man's control. In ancient times, lack of understanding ensured the appearance of children in the absence of all desire, therefore. 3. The new function of pleasure lures. This introduces a new factor into racial survival. Ancient men exposed undesired children to die. Moderns refuse to bear them. And 4. The announcement of parental instinct. Each generation now tends to eliminate from the reproductive stream of the race those individuals in whom parental instinct is insufficiently strong to ensure the procreation of children, the prospective parents of the next generation. But the home as an institution, a partnership between man and a woman, dates more specifically from the days of Dalmatia, about 1/2 million years ago. The monogamous practices of Andon and his immediate descendants having been abandoned long before. Family life, however, was not much to boast of before the days of the Nodites and the later Adamites. Adam and Eve exerted a lasting influence on all mankind. For the first time in the history of the world, men and women were observed working side by side in the garden. The Edenic ideal, the whole family as gardeners, was a new idea on Urantia. The early family embraced a related working group, including the slaves, all living in one dwelling. Marriage and family life have not always been identical, but have of necessity been closely associated. Woman always wanted the individual family, and eventually she had her way. Love of offspring is almost universal and is of distinct survival value. The ancients always sacrificed the mother's interests for the welfare of the child. An Eskimo mother even yet licks her baby in lieu of washing. But primitive mothers only nourished and cared for their children when very young. Like the animals, they discarded them as soon as they grew up. Enduring and continuous human associations have never been founded on biologic affection alone. The animals love their children. Man, civilized man, loves his children's children. The higher the civilization, the greater the joy of parents in the children's advancement and success. Thus, the new and higher realization of name pride comes into existence. The large families among ancient peoples were not necessarily affectional. Many children were desired because of 1. They were valuable as laborers. 2. They were old age insurance. 3. Daughters were sellable. 4. Family pride required extension of name. 5. Sons afforded protection and defense. 6. Ghost fear produced a dread of being alone. And 7. Certain religions required offspring. Ancestor worshippers view the failure to have sons as the supreme calamity for all time and eternity. They desire above all else to have sons to officiate in the post mortem feasts, to offer the required sacrifices for the ghost's progress through spirit land. Among ancient savages, discipline of children was begun very early, and the child early realized that disobedience meant failure or even death, just as it did to the animals. It is civilization's protection of the child from the natural consequences of foolish conduct that contributes so much to modern insubordination. Eskimo children thrive on so little discipline and correction simply because they are naturally docile little animals. The children of both the red and the yellow man are almost equally tractable, but in races containing endite inheritance, children are not so placid. These more imaginative and adventurous youths require more training and discipline. Modern problems of child culture are rendered increasingly difficult by one, the large degree of race mixture, two, artificial and superficial education, well, better said, less of education in these days we are in. Three, inability of the child to gain culture by imitating parents. The parents are absent from the family picture so much of the time because they want to have both a career. The olden ideas of family discipline were biologic, growing out of the realization that parents were creators of the child's being. The advancing ideals of family life are leading to the concept that bridging a child into the world instead of conferring certain parental rights entails the supreme responsibility of human existence. Civilization regards the parents as assuming all duties, the child as having all the rights. Respect of the child for his parents arises not in knowledge of the obligation implied in parental procreation, but naturally grows as a result of the care, training, and affection which are lovingly displayed in assisting the child to win the battle of life. The true parent is engaged in a continuous service ministry, which the wise child comes to recognize and appreciate. In the present industrial and urban era, the marriage institution is evolving along new economic lines. Family life has become more and more costly, while children who used to be an asset have become economic liabilities. But the security of civilization itself still rests on the growing willingness of one generation to invest in the welfare of the next and future generations, and any attempt to swift parental responsibility to state or church will prove suicidal to the welfare and advancement of civilization. Marriage with children and consequent family life is stimulative of the highest potentials in human nature and simultaneously provides the ideal avenue for the expression of these quickened attributes of mortal personality. The family provides for the biologic perpetuation of the human species. The home is the natural social arena wherein the ethics of blood brotherhood may be grasped by the growing children. The family is the fundamental unit of fraternity in which parents and children learn those lessons of patience, altruism, tolerance, and forbearance, which are so essential to the realization of brotherhood among all men. Human society would be greatly improved if the civilized races would more generally return to the family council practices of the Andites. They did not maintain the patriarchal or autocratic form of family government. They were very brotherly and associative, freely and frankly discussing every proposal and regulation of a family nature. They were ideally fraternal in all their family government. In an ideal family, filial and parental affection are both augmented by fraternal devotion. Family life is the progenitor of true morality, the ancestor of the consciousness of loyalty to duty. The enforced associations of family life stabilize personality and stimulate its growth through the compulsion of necessitous adjustment to other and diverse personalities. But even more, a true family, a good family, reveals to the parental procreators the attitude of the Creator to his children, while at the same time such parents portray to their children the first of a long series of ascending disclosures of the love of the paradise parent of all universe children. And then the last section, dangers of self gratification. The great threat against family life is the menacing rising tide of self gratification, the modern pleasure mania. And this is a very concerning movement that is going through and all over the entire planet. We have become so incredible absorbed by pleasure mania. The prime incentive to marriage used to be economic. Sex attraction was secondary. Marriage founded on self maintenance led to self perpetuation and concomitantly provided one of the most desirable forms of self gratification. It is the only institution of human society which embraces all three of the great incentives for living. Originally, property was the basic institution of self-maintenance, while marriage functioned as the unique institution of self-perpetuation. Although food satisfaction, play and humor, along with periodic sex indulgence, were means of self-gratification. It remains a fact that the evolving Moors have failed to build any distinct institution of self-gratification, and it is due to this failure to evolve specialized techniques of pleasurable enjoyment that all human institutions are so completely shot through with this pleasure pursuit. Property accumulation is becoming an instrument for augmenting all forms of self gratification, while marriage is often viewed only as a means of pleasure. And this overindulgence, this widely spread pleasure mania, now constitutes the greatest threat that has ever been leveled at the social evolutionary institution of family life, the home. The violet race introduced a new and only imperfectly realized characteristic into the experience of humankind, the play instinct coupled with the sense of humor. It was there in a measure in the Sun Gigs and Endonites, but the Adamic strain elevated this primitive propensity into the potential of pleasure, a new and glorified form of self gratification, the basic type of self gratification, aside from appeasing hunger, is sex gratification, and this form of sensual pleasure was enormously heightened by the blending of the Sungix and the Endites. There is real danger in the combination of restlessness, curiosity, adventure, and pleasure, abandon, characteristic of the post-Endite race. The hunger of the soul cannot be satisfied with physical pleasures. The love of home and children is not augmented by the unwise pursuit of pleasure. Though you exhaust the resources of art, color, sound, rhythm, music, and adornment of person, you cannot hope thereby to elevate the soul or to nourish the spirit. Vanity and fashion cannot minister to home building and child culture. Pride and rivalry are powerless to enhance the survival qualities of succeeding generations. Advancing celestial beings all enjoy rest and the ministry of the reversion directors. All efforts to obtain wholesome diversion and to engage in uplifting play are sound. Refreshing sleep, rest, recreation, and all pastimes which prevent the boredom of monotony are worthwhile. Competitive games, storytelling, and even the taste of good food may serve as forms of self gratification. When you use salt to savor food, pause to consider that for almost a million years man could obtain salt only by dipping his food in ashes. Let man enjoy himself, let the human race find pleasure in 1,001 ways, let evolutionary mankind explore all forms of legitimate self gratification, the fruits of the long, upward biologic struggle. Man has well earned some of his present day joys and pleasures. But look you well to the goal of destiny. Pleasures are indeed suicidal if they succeed in destroying property, which has become the institution of self maintenance, and self gratifications have indeed cost a fatal price if they bring about the collapse of marriage, the decadence of family life, and the destruction of the home, man's supreme evolutionary acquirement and civilization's only hope of survival. And lovely brothers and sisters, there's another threat going on all over the planet, and this is the threat of artificial intelligences and nanotechnology and the creation, better said, transforming organic life, natural life, in synthetic life. This is a threat for the entire human species, animal species, and nature itself. Humanity is playing with life as if it is a toy and as if it is nothing worth. Humanity is at the brink of a suicide of gigantic forms, and we need to wake up of what science is doing, what the technocratic monsters are doing, and what the technocratic movement is really all about. And we start, better said, we need to inform ourselves um, what nanotechnology truly means, what blockchain truly means, and that the entire technological movement that is going on in the world is not so um, not so good for us as human life forms, as well as for animal life forms and nature life forms, as we think it is. It is very concerning that the technocratics are trying to create synthetic life forms, and with this undo human life and animal life from existence. And these technocrats think that they can play for God. These technocrats have removed God and thus the spiritual quotation out of the window. They don't care about natural life. They want to be the directors of matter. And so, through nanotechnology, which we already have in our bodies, due to food, contaminated soil, contaminated rainwater, contaminated water supply. We already get all these nano particles in our body. It's already in our bloodstream. Um, these technocrats want to be the directors over each person's life, as well as wanting to become the directors of each animal life form. So this is the reason why they came with the lie of chipping your animals, vaccinating your animals, and so on. Vaccines and chips are as dangerous for animals as they are for us humans. So stop doing this, and do not vaccinate and chip your animal, because there are sinister agendas behind this, and we need to wake up um, what is truly happening and what is truly going on in the world of so-called science and technology. And I deliberately say so-called science because the scientists that we know of are in actuality scientists who darn well know what they're doing, but are deliberately having their mouth shut toward the rest of the public, and they deliberately do not inform us of what they are truly doing. So with this said, I have come to the end of reading the entire storyline about marriage, all the information presented to us of paper 82, 83, and this paper 84. All the information has been presented to us by the chief of Seraphim stationed on Urantia. And thank you so much, Chief of Seraphim, for giving us all this valuable information. Thank you, and I leave this screen and I go to the last section of this reading today. And as last, I'm saying thank you so much, lovely brothers and sisters, for listening and reading along. I wish you all a beautiful day filled with a lot of joy, love, and wisdom and service to your fellow brothers and sisters. as Jesus has taught us to do so. And as last, I say, God bless you, and I love you all very much. And let us listen to a beautiful piece of music done by Ben Sound. I leave the stage